Hello and welcome to The Public Good. This is Andrea O'Sullivan from Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG, which unites 278 community organizations working to build a better Buffalo. We're delighted to be joining you every Tuesday at 7 p.m. here on Power 96.5 FM and Mix 1080 AM. Today we're joined by Andrew Marcum, who's a program director at the Center for Self-Advocacy and an adjunct professor in disability studies at the City University of New York. Don't forget to follow PPG on Facebook and Twitter, and of course you can always get great information on our website, ppgbuffalo.org. The Public Good is sponsored in part by Univera Healthcare, real people who really care. Video of this show is on our Facebook page at facebook.com/ppgbuffalo. You can also find videos from previous week's shows on our YouTube page. Before we get started, I have a few quick announcements for you. Join Push Buffalo and learn the process of buying land or property from the city auction. This is a workshop that will take place on Wednesday, May 30th from 6 to 8 p.m. at 298 North Hampton Street in Buffalo. These workshops about how to buy property, how to attend the city auction are being held monthly up until the auction happens. For more information, visit Push Buffalo's Facebook event. You can search for that online to find out when the next one's coming up, but this one is May 30th, 6 to 8 p.m. Also soon is a great opportunity to chat with socially engaged Buffalo change makers and learn how to become an Open Buffalo Emerging Leaders. This is now an annual program, Emerging Leaders, and those accepted will complete an innovative program combining community organizing training, action-oriented research skills, and interpersonal skill building. This event is Friday, June 1st from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Oak Room at 1435 Main Street. Emerging Leaders, we've had many of our friends and colleagues at Partnership for the Public Good go through the program. And we see from all ages, all backgrounds, big benefit from that program. So again, you can find out more Friday, June 1st from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Oak Room. Free food, free drinks, lots of great information. Now there's one more event we want to draw your attention to, which is happening this week and which we'll likely talk more with Andrew about. This is the Developmental Disabilities Day Convention. It has long been part of the Western New York disability community, an important event that brings together local and regional agencies, self-advocates, direct support professionals, and more. This is actually the largest conference of its kind in the United States and involves many of our partners, including Andrew and the task force that he's part of, who are working for a more accessible regional office of the New York State Office of Persons with Developmental Disabilities. So this event is coming up this Thursday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. all day at the Niagara Falls Convention Center, which is 101 Old Falls Street in Niagara Falls, New York. And I think if you have any questions or interests in developmental disabilities and in solutions for accessibility, that's really the place to be on Thursday. So Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Sure, thank you. It's my pleasure.
I've already mentioned, just really briefly, that you are part of a campaign to bring accessibility solutions to people with disabilities who are living in our region. So maybe you can just start by giving us an overview of the work you do.
Sure. So right now we have a developmental disabilities center that houses the state and regional offices of persons with developmental disabilities, which is nearly 3 miles from the nearest public transit point. It is isolated from the community, and it was deliberately built in isolation from the community decades ago as an institution where people with disabilities were housed. It was not intended to be connected with the community, yet it's the place where people with disabilities in Western New York go to receive services, go to advocate for their service needs, go to interact with policymakers and decision makers at the OPWDD, and it's cut off from the community. It's not accessible to the community, and that's inappropriate. That needs to change, because if we're going to have people with disabilities living in the community and being involved in the decisions that affect their lives, they need to have an office that's accessible.
So this is, again, the Office of Persons with Developmental Disabilities, a New York State office. This is their regional service office. And as you said, folks from the city, folks from quite a large area have to get to this West Seneca location to do work that they want to do, to get services. Right now, as it stands, how can people get there?
Well, as I mentioned, it's nearly 3 miles from the nearest public transit point. So if you rely on public transit, and of course many people with disabilities do, you have to take a couple of different buses just to get to the Southgate Plaza. And then if you happen to work at OPWDD, you can catch a shuttle, but the shuttle runs twice a day, once early in the morning and then late again in the afternoon. So if you're a self-advocate like myself and you have an important meeting to go to, and that meeting is 2 in the afternoon, you got to get there at 9 and leave at 4:30 or whenever the last shuttle leaves. So that shuttle only exists because of people with disabilities advocating for at least some form of transportation to get there. After the NFTA bus route was cut to the OPWDD several years ago now, I think it's 6 or 7 years ago at least, folks organized to get some solutions, and each solution has been piecemeal. It's been a Band-Aid, it's been an inadequate shuttle, or that we advocated for funding to keep the NFTA driving out there for several years, and then that funding ran out. So we were at a point, basically, where we come to the recognition that, this was a former institution that isolated people from the community, and now some of those same people who experienced abuse, isolation, trauma, have to go to that same building just to get services that the state is supposed to provide to them. That's not person-centered. That doesn't fit with New York State's agenda of helping people live in the community, and it's not consistent with federal laws and regulations in regard to that either. So it's just something that has to be changed, and we need an office that is accessible to people in the region and that covers all the bases in terms of the services that are offered.
So I know you're working together with the Voice Buffalo Accessibility Task Force, and that, as you said, a few years ago you were really saying, make the office more accessible. But now it's really come to the point where the office has to be moved for it to be accessible.
Right. I mean, we recently were able to get, through the Freedom of Information Act, a feasibility study that was done by OPWDD on the feasibility of moving its offices from its current location to a location in the community. And one of the things that report points out is that the current location is not up to ADA standards in terms of its accessibility levels. And